Hola estudiantes y bienvenidos al final clase en este curso. We are going to talk today about building a sentence. So you have all of the pieces you need to build a sentence, but we're going to talk really quickly about how to put those together and how you can add more things along your journey in learning Spanish. We're not going to cover everything obviously in this short course, but we have covered the main points. So let's go ahead and see what we can figure out. So first of all, there are lots of parts to a sentence. There's lots of things you can put in a sentence. For example, we have the subject, which we talked about in person. We have subjects, right? Pronouns and nouns. So underneath my subject, I have the two things that can be subjects, right? We talked about pronouns and nouns, and we use adjectives to describe nouns and pronouns as well. Verbs you can describe with an adverb, right? A verb is what we talked about being AR, ER, IR, and you conjugate that based on the subject. We did not discuss objects, but it's another part of sentences that you can learn along the way. So what do you need in order to build a sentence? Because like I said, we're going to discuss building a sentence and we're going to use what we've learned in this course so far in order to build those sentences. Well, I'll give you a hint. You don't need any objects. So first you need a subject. You need somebody who's doing the actions in this sentence. And second of all, you need an action. You need something that's happening during that sentence. So the only things you need to make a sentence are a subject and a verb. That's it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and you can be obviously super creative with what your subject is. What noun are you going to use? And then with that, what action is that noun going to do? So that can be really fun for you. And of course, you can start adding fun things like adjectives, adverbs, and objects later on. But for this short course, we are just focusing on subject and verb, which are the only two things that are necessary to create a sentence. All right, now let's look at some examples and some steps because I love steps as a way to learn. It's a great start for anything. So like I said, subject and verb, that's all you need in order to create a sentence. So first thing I want you to do is choose a person. Think back to our nice little table with all of those pronouns and all those people on it and how you can identify every single thing under one of those categories, even if it is a CD or a mug or a guitar, things that aren't quote unquote people, they're inanimate objects, they're still going to go under third person, right? Because even a mug can sit. You have something going on there, right? So first thing I want you to do is choose the person. Who is doing the action? Who or what is doing the action in your sentence? Next, I need you to choose a verb. So this is the action that that item is doing. All right. Now I want you to keep in mind here that we've only talked about the present tense on regular verbs. There are a lot of irregulars out there, but if you conjugate an irregular verb in the regular form, most people will be able to understand what you are saying. So there's so much to learn there, but for another time, we're just doing the baseline in this course. And we also have only talked about the present tense. All right, so that present tense, there's so many other types of verbs out there or types of conjugations and tenses. Like I'd mentioned before in the conjugation video, there's a lot out there. We're only talking about present indicative. So keep that in mind. You're not going to be saying things in the past tense or the future tense at this point. We're sticking to the present tense. But once you've chosen your person and your verb or the action that person is doing, I need you to conjugate the verb for the person. So just like we did in the conjugation video, you need to figure out what person it is, then figure out what kind of verb it is, AR, ER, IR. Take off that AR, ER, IR. Very, very important. Don't forget that part. And then you need to put on the right ending. So if it was second person plural, you're going to put that second person plural ending onto your verb. After you've done all that, you have created an entire sentence. All right, so it wasn't that much work. Maybe you feel like it was a lot of work, but the more you practice it, the easier it's going to get. But let's go ahead and look at an example so you can see how quickly it can be done. So first thing I have done is chosen my person, yo. This is first person singular, yo. I am doing the action. Secondly, I've chosen my action as talking, hablar. Hablar is an AR verb, and yo is my first person singular person. So we've already got that baseline for conjugating the verb. All right, so let's start with part number one. Like I said, it's an AR verb, hablar. Next thing I need to do is get rid of my AR. Yo is first person singular, so I'm looking in the first person singular box, or that box on the top left hand side of your chart. All right, and if you look there, you will find an O. So hablo, I'm going to put that O on the end of my obel. And now we have hablo. I can add in my person now, and I have yo hablo. So here's a fun thing for you to realize. You don't actually need to have that yo there. I mentioned this before. If it's first or second person, you don't need to have this first part on, or the person, because the ending specifies what person it is. Each of the endings are different, and because of that, you don't necessarily need to have even two words to make a complete sentence. Hablo is a full sentence in itself. It means I speak. Yo hablo, also a full sentence, but it's two words. It still means I speak. Either one means the same thing, so it's up to you. Now, do remember that in the third person, because it can literally be anything, you want to specify what you're talking about. If you just say sings, it's going to be a little bit weird because no one knows what's singing, right? If I say canto, it's I sing, all in one. Canta, it can be anything singing. So keep that in mind, but if you want to always put that person up front, you're good to start off with that. All right. Let's talk about some quick practice that would be fun for you. If you love to write, go ahead and write all the sentences you can possibly think of. Remember how I told you can look up regular verbs in Google and then just practice conjugating them in the box? Well, now you can do the same thing, but switch out your different people and create a story with them, all right? It's going to be a story in the present tense. Don't forget that. However, you can do that, and it's a fun time. You can draw pictures with it, make a book. Great time. But if you like to use your hands and move things around, what I'd like you to do is use the verbs given on your verb practice sheet, the one that you have hopefully filled out, and match them with different people from your person sheet, or look up some words on Word Reference to use, all right? Word Reference is a great resource. It is much better than using Google Translate or Spanish Dict. Those are translators, not dictionaries. Word Reference is a dictionary. It's going to give you so much more information and going to be so much more accurate. But you can look up totally different things. For example, penguin or chef, and then write your own sentences. Like I just said, make a story, make a fun story about a penguin chef who cooks in the kitchen. All right. So for my example, I have the chef cooks. I want to say the chef cooks. So I had to look up chef and I had to look up cook, right? Because those aren't on my verb practice sheet, but I still could look them up. I went to Word Reference. I looked up those two things. And when I looked up cook, at the top, it probably gave me a noun. There's a whole thing about Word Reference. You can find videos on that, on how to use Word Reference. But make sure you're looking for a verb. So if you're looking for a verb, it has to end in what three things? Either AR, ER, or IR. It's not a verb if it doesn't have an AR in the end, an ER in the end, or an IR on the end, or an SE. We didn't talk about reflexive verbs, but there are those as well. All right, so you're looking for those verbs. And then I looked up also chef, which happens to be the same word as cook, or you can just say chef, honestly. Chef is chef in Spanish. Anyway, I went through my steps on the previous slide and I came up with el cocinero cocina. The cook cooks, the chef cooks. All right? So like I said, use the steps on the previous slide. Help you go slowly. Just go one at a time until you get comfortable doing things. Don't skip steps. Go one at a time. Go through everything. And absolutely don't forget to conjugate, okay? If it ends in AR, ER, IR, and somebody's doing it, it needs to be conjugated. All right. The other thing you can do that would involve moving your hands around is use the note cards you have made or make some more and connect them to more sentences. So if you've been making those additional activities throughout this entire experience, this entire course, start using those to create some sentences and make some more. Like I said, look up some fun words like penguin or sewing machine, and make those some little cards as well. You might even want to color code them. So make all of your nouns one color, make all of your verbs another color, make all of your endings a different color. All right, and that way you can kind of mix and match. Follow those directions that I've had written on the additional activities section of your worksheets, and use those to kind of help you create lots of little cards that you can move around and make new sentences and make fun little activities, act things out, create a story. It can really be quite fun. So with all of that, I do want to note that we have only covered regular verbs. I've said this multiple times now, but I really want to bring it home that there are many, many, many irregular verbs. I don't want to say that many, actually. There's far less than there are in English. And you can learn them all, but they're conjugated differently. So it's going to take a little bit more memorization, and you can definitely look those up, all right? Look up how to conjugate different verbs, and that's a great way for you to learn more things, right? Just look up how to conjugate each verb, and then when you have an irregular verb, you can just memorize those conjugations. Things like ser. Ser is a really, really common irregular verb. You will use it a lot in life if you speak a lot of Spanish. So look up how to conjugate the verb ser and the verb ir. All right, really common irregular verbs, but they're not going to follow the same patterns that we've learned in this. This is your baseline course, the basics of learning a language. All right. And the more that you listen and read in this language, the better you're going to become at it, guaranteed. When you read, you are seeing those words in action. You're seeing how things connect, and you're able to learn new words with pictures and descriptions. So that really helps you to learn, and the same with listening. The more you hear things, the better it's going to be for your own pronunciation and your own ability to speak and put together different words to create sentences and phrases. Vale, chicos, this is the end of this course. I hope you've had a great time learning this baseline of Spanish, and I hope it's really encouraged you that you can start learning a language really quickly with some basics under your belt. So I hope very much that you continue your journey with Spanish and you can start adding even more things to your sentences. Like I said, we've done subjects and verbs, but there are so many things out there that you can add into your sentences to create beautiful long sentences. So I hope you continue your journey with that. Vale, hasta la próxima.